one banner that says thank you for supporting what we do, and I want you to think of that as the different people that we're watching. But I don't really have an intro today. This is Every Second Matters. It's a project that's ongoing since 2013. A bunch of different people got together in some live conversations online and decided what we could do something to keep a focus on what our Second Amendment protects through those times where it's important, and those times when the apathy hits in and it's not important and there's other things that take priority, so that we have this consistent effort. So when it's important, we can do something more than just add to the confusion or the volume of the hype. So hopefully, I think, well, I'm assuming, I don't want to say hopefully, I'm assuming everyone agrees that we're in a situation now of stress. Smeggy, can this time we just do the icons so we don't have the visual distraction? Appreciate it. This time we have an actual situation where we can be effective. People that are in Every Second Matters, you're either new to this or you've been around for a while. And if you've been around for a while and you're here this month, I suspect it's because you want to see what we can get done. See a foundational focus on our Second Amendment from a bird's eye view, and not a flag in the wind that's fluctuating by what is being thrown out there. So with that in mind, thanks everybody for showing up. And we do have a bunch of panelists. I'll try to introduce everybody in the order they showed up. Echo showed up joined first from Florida. Echo is a YouTuber, reloader, friend of many, and hosts some online conversations with a group of folks from around the country on a regular basis. Thanks for jumping in.
Appreciate it, G-Webs, for the invite. I'm glad to be here.
I think Brooke was the next one to jump in. Brooke is a firearms instructor, a Second Amendment activist, a mom, and a member of the DC Project. And, well, thanks for jumping in. I could keep going on, but thanks for joining.
Wait, Jake is here. Hi, Jake.
Hello, Brooke.
Oh, and I should also say Connecticut, because I forget to let people know we're in our locations as well. I don't know if I should add. I think I can speak for Echo, lifetime gun owner. Brooke, lifetime around guns, recent advocate or enthusiast of guns.
Yeah. So actually, I was just talking about this weekend. Is that I'd been around all my guns. I knew enough to not touch them, but I didn't know anything about guns until after I had kids and realized that I had monsters in my closet. And then my children are what inspired me to actually learn how to not have an accident with a firearm. And that is really the turning point between being a gun owner and being someone who is in the gun community. And that was like 2008 or so.
Well, that's an interesting thing. I'm going to throw in there in my notes. I think the next person to jump in was DJ. So we call him the 2A roadie. Thanks for jumping in from Nebraska.
Glad to be here. Happy Every Second Matters, y'all.
DJ does moderator job. If you're running any kind of live conversation, you see DJ out there, you can comfortably add his moderator status to his account. He'll drop links and keep the spam bots and that kind of stuff out, and help direct people that might have a question or something, and give you some heads up if you're having audio problems. The same way you'd expect support from an ally. Then we got Smeggy jumping in from California. He's a snowman, an advocate. I don't know how many, been to a couple of gun rights policy conferences, or at least one, and some virtual ones. Longtime member of the Every Second Matters Project. Brings good perspective and questions to the mix. Thanks for joining from California.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. How's everyone doing today?
Good. And then we got Jake jumping in from Walk Talk America, and I'm just now uploading the conversation we had on Monday. But how do I describe you? From the medical side, from the mental health therapy side, coming to Walk the Talk America, which bridges the gap between guns and mental health awareness. And thanks for jumping in. Oh, so from Nevada. Thanks for jumping in.
And I just have to say that I said that same line at least 100 times this weekend as I was giving out the Walk the Talk America bracelets at the Detroit event. So, Jake, I need to get more, but I think Michael is in charge of all of that, yeah?
He does have them. He can ship them to you.
So he
That's
was
awesome.
one of the
Let's start there. I've introduced everybody. I don't need to really say too much. Thanks everybody for showing up again. And we have invites out to like 33 different activists out there. They can or can't show up on the 2nd. We decided to do it on the 2nd because it wanders between days of the week. So I pick a day or time during the day, and then the calendar picks the day of the week. So some people might jump in, but aside from that, Brooke and Jake, why not talk a little bit about what happened with Rick this weekend and how Walk Talk America was involved?
So Jake wasn't there. I just decided to, because earlier this year, Mike sent me a whole bunch of bracelets for Walk the Talk America, and I did not get to give all of them away at my other women's event. So I thought I would bring them to Rick Ector's women's event this weekend in Detroit. And so that's how come I had them. So Jake and Mike did not know until I'm going to ask them for more for my next event. So Rick Ector's event was a women's Second Amendment, a women's shooting event that's totally free in Detroit. For those of you who don't know about it, it is Legally Armed in Detroit is the name of his company. And this was the 11th event, and his whole deal is to break down any and every barrier there is for women to get their hands on firearms for their first time. So the event is 100% free for all the participants. All they have to do is show up, and they register and show up. And the whole impetus behind it was that he read or saw a news story about a woman who had been raped and killed and left in a field, and he felt that women need protecting, and that he wanted to make sure that there was a way that women could learn how to do such a thing. And so while at that event this weekend, this was their 11th, my first time going, I just brought the Walk the Talk America armbands with me so that I told people all about Walk the Talk America all weekend long. So all the instructors left with their bands, and a bunch of the different participants also got to do that. So yes, I've been a walking commercial for Jake and friends.
That's awesome. I couldn't appreciate that more. And if you don't know what she's talking about, we have these wristbands that I'm wearing one. It says, "Take a free and anonymous mental health screening today." And it's got our website slug on there, WTTA.org/love. And you just log in and take a free and anonymous mental health screening. Whatever you think might be struggling with it. Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you so much for doing that. That's super cool.
And then I was going to reach out to you guys, but G-Webs, I'm just taking everything over. But
yeah, go ahead.
Just so you know, I was going to reach out to you and Mike to find out, are you guys planning on presenting at NSSF this year? Because when I got the SHOT Show, NSSF. But it's one of the topics for the SHOT Show in January that they're looking for presenters for was suicide. So I'm just like, I wonder if Jake and Mike are planning on going.
I don't know. Not to air dirty laundry, but I submitted a proposal to present last year, and we never caught word back, like at all. And I spent a considerable amount of time writing the proposal on what we were going to cover, and it was just we just never even got acknowledged. I even sent a follow-up. I was like, hey, just following up on this thing. So I'm a little hesitant to spend as much time putting into it, the same application this year. I would love to, obviously, because I think those learning events are really great. And I would really enjoy, I know Mike would too, we would really enjoy, presenting to a room full of people about, demystifying what mental health counseling is about, and talking about how guns and mental health are not two diametrically opposed topics. So if anybody knows anybody at NSSF and can grease the skids to get us in, I'll absolutely do it. I just don't want to spend like 3 hours writing up my
just recycle the one you did. Recycle the one you did last year. It's very simple.
Will. Yeah, probably.
But I'm like, ooh, can I be part of that if you're doing that? So anyway, that was it. But so I know one of the things we like to talk about, G-Webs, is the whole what else can we do Second Amendment. And I've been thinking about that a lot after being on the weekend and talking to brand new people who've never touched guns, instructors who've been doing this forever, all of that sort of stuff. And also spending time in DC over the years. And I think one of the most important things that we can do as Second Amendment advocates is not talk about Second Amendment. And I know we've talked about this before, but it's definitely the whole idea of talking about violence prevention, talking about the mental health side of things, talking about what we can actually do that actually makes an impact. Because here in Connecticut, I'm in hearings all the time, and for some reason, it's taken me a long time, but it seems like the main thing that they talk about is we're going to ban guns, ban guns, ban guns. But then when Second Amendment advocates bring up prevention strategies and all of that, I think we are way more proactive than the anti-gun folks as far as trying to stop violence before it occurs. And we got to figure out a better messaging to really call them to task that all they want to do is ban a firearm or something, when in actuality, there's so many better ways to actually help. Because mental health, not only can we prevent suicides, but we can also prevent violence, because that's kind of the basis of it.
That's a great tee up, and I'll just take this for a second and then hand the mic back off to our host. But your point is very valid in that if we're going to talk about root cause mitigation and not the after effects and the reactionary stuff, and trying to I analogize this to a bush, right? If you got a bush or a weed that you want to get rid of, you don't keep trimming the leaves, which is sort of what the anti-gun crowd does. They're like, well, let's target this thing or this function or this presentation or this style. That's trimming leaves. If we call this collectively the gun violence branch, and I'll lump suicide into there because I think it bears merit that turning violence against self is violence. So if we're going to tackle the root of the bush and really uproot it, we got to address things in the home. We got to address parenting. We have to address character issues. We have to address spiritual issues. We have to address personal integrity issues, and start talking about why people get to the point that they're so despondent that they turn their violence either inward or outward and don't solve their life issues. And that goes through my realm. That cuts through my profession, where we talk to people and say, hey, what adjustments can you make fundamentally at your core within your household, within your home, within yourself, within your patterns of behavior in life? And how can you start practicing a little differently so that you can have good, meaningful, sustainable interactions with life? Find a good job that you like, a career that's worthwhile and fulfilling, some hobbies that you enjoy that are edifying and uplifting, instead of this external, we call it external locus of control, where it's like, well, let's just eliminate the thing out there rather than looking deep inside, right? And the ripple effect, obviously we start with suicide because that seems to be the most controllable. If you can get somebody corrected in their mentality to the point that they're like, oh, you know what, life is worth living instead of dying, then the ripple effect becomes healthier relationships, healthier communication, more accurate expression, and therefore you become a better employee, your life is more fulfilled, all those things.
And then
there's less reason to have violence, right? So I think we need to start that direction. And some of our solutions to get very practical about this are not asking .gov for intervention strategies. It's to ask each other to start doing these things. Like, mental health screenings is one of them.
Now start doing stuff and then let other people follow. So let me throw something in here. The way you said that, okay, so what should happen? And then that's like going, how do we scold people before the act, right? That's not something we're interested in doing, and we can't do it. So the opposite of that, or an opposite of that, is can we offer and emphasize and shine light on the advantages of the shooting sports and firearms community and how awesome we do. Toby's jumped us in from Cape Gun Works, and he had his rapid fire radio segment on the Grace Curley show earlier today that they stream live on YouTube for everybody to watch and participate in. And you guys talked earlier, or at least in that show, we talked about, dang it, the chats ran past me and I lost my notes here. I guess I was thinking of some of the potentials in, the gun community with gun shops and their shooting ranges. So instead of saying, we know it, we've put thought to this and we know the problems are bad XYZ. We don't even have to get into the issues. We know what the issues are. They are caused by something. So instead of saying, we've looked into it and here's the problem, can we look into it and go, we've looked into it and found problems and here's our solutions, ways for you to be self-empowered, ways for you to work on teams. We create places in the community for you to gather and to have for veterans to come together and have like a veterans, we have ladies nights. How come we don't have veterans nights, for the VFW hall to come and meet at our gun range? So when the politicians were told by one of the side of the politicians were saying, if you take away braces from disabled veterans, you're taking away their therapy. And the other side said, veterans who have issues have guns, ? That shouldn't be a thing. And we can take that off the playing field by being proactive. I don't want to use a weird word, but if we emphasize the advantages of guns and shooting, places like what Toby, I guess what I was talking about is the concept of having a bunch of advocates come together at the range and use that as a way to get everybody together with some lighthearted, not in the results of or reaction to a tragedy or an atrocity, but instead a proactive way to just get together and find a way to kind of say, let's challenge the Massachusetts laws on assembly with firearms or travel with a firearm, but at the same time, advocate how guns can be good in the community. Now I'll shut up and say, is there something we can go that way by just being positive instead of negative? And thanks again, Toby, for jumping in. I know you got limited time, so I'll shut up again.
I'll definitely say the tragedy side of things actually just happened this morning for me, in that a friend of ours, her son got killed in a car accident last night. And the challenging part for that is it's a tragedy. The more challenging part for me is that 16 years ago, my little sister was killed in a car accident. And the challenge is that it's tragic no matter how someone loses their life. And the thing that got me thinking on this morning was the fact that because it was a car accident, all of the attention will be on the loss of the child. But whenever anyone loses a life to a gun, the attention is never given to the family and the loss and the grieving that should be occurring of that tragedy. And instead, they keep focusing on a firearm. And because of that, to me, this is a new story that I think I will start telling, is that, they say they want to save lives, but they don't care about the lives that were lost. They care about whether they have a dead bodies to stand on when it comes to gun control and how heartless that actually is. So anyway, that was my day today. But it's just one of those things where they talk about getting rid of stuff and they don't do anything to actually prevent. One of the things I've known for a long time is during the 10 years of rifle ban previously, crime did go down. And the reason crime went down has nothing to do with the ban. It had to do with the fact that the FBI, Secret Service, Department of Education actually put into place programs that do prevention and things that actually stopped crime before it started. And we just need to be able to have access or be able to talk more about it. Because I know D-Webs, you put up that question of the good guy with a gun versus the bad guy with a gun. And my whole thing is to always not talk about guns and try to really focus on violence prevention instead. Because it seems to me that if you have that conversation, good guy gun, bad guy gun, it goes down this whole training route and everything else versus, hey, how do we stop violence? How do we stop suicide? Like Jake said in the past, we can't stop it, but we can prevent more of them. And to change the conversation to violence prevention and suicide prevention. Because every time we get on the 2A or the gun stuff, it shuts the other side down instantaneously. Whereas if we talk violence prevention and suicide prevention and grief counseling and things like that, and we take the guns out of the conversation, even though Second Amendment is our passion behind it, that sometimes we can get a little farther.
I agree with that. And for 2 seconds, I'll just say that I think it's a mentality shift that the entire gun community has to turn its mind around, where we go from defensive, reactionary, dig our heels in, defend our rights, to proactively talking positively about the benefits and start telling stories about what firearms have done for people, separate and apart from defense. and start moving more toward, like, therapeutic is great. That's one thing, but camaraderie, community, self-efficacy, competence training, confidence building, especially with the stories I've heard from women who are survivors of violent crime and victims of domestic violence who have overcome that and said, I found a new sense of self in going to the range. I think that's a great avenue. We could replace range or guns with basketball, swimming, softball, soccer, piano lessons. And if we start to shift our mentality around that and start taking the offensive approach to say, look, these are good, wholesome activities that you can do with your entire family any day of the week, then we start to build in some really strong support for why this is good, as opposed to why the alternative is bad, right? The taking away. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I just want to jump in here for a second. Sorry, guys. I'm actually about to jump out, so then you have all the time. I just want to comment something like G-Web said about the positive of the gun ownership and the camaraderie and all that stuff. Is that, like, I experienced that firsthand, where I was going through some stuff, and it was the people online that we just happened to have a common interest of firearms. They became my buddies, they became my friends, and that definitely helped a lot. And then secondly, going back to what Brooke had said about the changing the conversation, I think some politicians are starting to do that. We saw that a little bit with the school thing and the cops waited an hour or whatever. Don't want to get into all that, but that was a positive thing of people bringing up, here's some stuff that has nothing to do with firearms that would help, whether it's locking doors or medical training for teachers or any of that other stuff. And that does, I think, help our cause of focusing and not just guns bad, guns good, but here's some other stuff that everyone should be able to agree with. So with that, I'm going to jump out. I'll keep listening. You guys have a good one.
I was just going to echo what Jake said too. We sponsor a veterans group around here called Top Shot, and the name of the charity that we put up to support these veterans groups is called Veterans Top Shot Invitational. But the two groups we sponsor, one of them is called Heroes in Transition, and it's a bunch of guys who've come back from war and are assimilating back into society. But we are one of the stops, if you will, on the yearly schedule where all these veterans get to bring their wives to the range and kind of show them like it's a proud moment for them. And a lot of these guys are struggling with PTSD or some of the other after effects of being in war. But this camaraderie around the gun in the range and being able to kind of shine in that moment with their wives and show them how to shoot a gun, and like it brings out this whole nother side of them. And at first, when we first started doing it, the lady who started the charity, she was a Gold Star mother who lost her son in Afghanistan, and she was a little nervous about it. Like, I don't know if we go to restaurants, we do go-karts, we do equine therapy, we go camping and do all this, we go bowling. I don't know if we should do the gun thing. And I'm like, absolutely, you should do the gun thing. Come check it out and try it once. And they tried it and everybody just loved it and had such a great time. And that whole central theme of being able to, shoot and the whole sport of it, the discipline of it, and then teaching their wives, like, oh no, hold it like this, and making adjustments and stuff like that. And some of these guys weren't even like combat veterans, but they were, what little experience they had with guns in boot camp or whatever has, still brings back that little bit of pride and that sense of accomplishment that they could share with their significant others and stuff. And it was one of the most well-attended events that they do. And I think there were 30 people, 15 couples, and so it was a really cool experience for them to do it. And then they put a team in for the Veterans Top Shot Invitational, the shooting tournament, which happens on right around September 11th. So, and they have a great time with that. So there'll be 8 different people shooting in that. So I agree that, it doesn't always have to be about the defensive use of a firearm. There's so much more that goes into it. And that's something most people don't even understand. I am probably guilty of it a lot of wanting to center it back on like the reason we have the Second Amendment in the first place. But there's so many other aspects to it that, you know, we used to ask in our license to carry class, why do you want a gun? Not that it was a requisite for taking the class, but it was just interesting to hear what people said. And we're like, there's really no wrong reason for why you want to own a gun unless it's to like rob banks and, you know, carjack people. But other than that, like there's no wrong reason for lawful purposes. And so, but it was interesting to hear that, you know, some guys just want to collect, some guys want to shoot, some guys want to hunt, some guys want to, you know, defend their home or defend themselves out on the street or whatever it is. But it was always interesting to get that feedback from people. And some people like, because I can, or, you know, in case they ever take it away. So, but it was interesting to hear those responses. And I'm always looking for ways to help in the community where we could, you know, maybe pick up on some of the red flags that, sorry to use such a abused term, but of people who may or may not be, indicators that are of people that are struggling or whatever. We make everybody who comes to our range.
So I'm thinking of like bars and stuff where they'll have a poster, and if they I think there's some obligation by the liquor industry to do some kind of public service stuff, so they'll be funny with it or they'll have fun with it. So why can't the firearms industry champion that and have PSAs for awareness for all and for championing the advantages? I always get mad. I like NSSF, but I also will publicly get pissed about their Project Child Safe, which constantly complains about everything, when in reality, gun owners have done tremendous strides of keeping firearms deaths down without any legislation at all. Just being, and in fact, again, with an actual intent, an intentional effort to keep firearms education, safety, and awareness education out of schools. Back when I was a kid, a cop would come in when you were like in, I can't remember, 5th grade maybe, and say, this is a gun, don't touch it, that kind of stuff, and then leave. And, you know, maybe say, hey, this is what it's like being a cop. So at least we all, everybody across the board, everybody knew what a gun was, leave it alone kind of thing. It wasn't Eddie the Eagle. It was just whatever the police was doing at the time. That was before Eddie the Eagle probably. So I don't know if Eddie the Eagle replaced that, but obviously I think that's been taken out of schools completely. And in spite of that, we've had firearms accidents go down a lot. So I think that Project Child Safe, I've been saying it ever since the campaign came out, should have been saying, look at how awesome firearms owners have done. Let's follow the lead in other things like drunk driving and other things. But I think that we can, as to get to what you're talking about, have campaigns up, signs up, instead of saying, don't lie for the other guy, which everybody's so sick of seeing because we all paid for that with our tax dollars. And nobody's doing that anyway. It's just creating the theater that gun shops are somehow the conduits to the crimes underworld or whatever. We could have just as many cool posters up, and in the way that people play with memes and stuff, you'd think they take it as a challenge to have like thought-provoking, interesting, witty, you know, awesome posters, the same way concert posters used to be, making people aware of all the positive aspects of firearms, maybe the mathematical stuff that we like to talk about to each other. Let's visualize that stuff and let's championing having that as our artwork and our shirts. So instead of like them being able to go, oh, look, we don't understand patriotism and some allusion to patriotism, and we're going to claim that this is questionable. They can't look at something that says, hey, take a pause. How is it the Walk Talk Americas? Cause a pause. Right? How can they complain about cause a pause? That campaign.
I'll say that this, you know, psychology guy stepping in here. The mentality that accompanies focus is very important. So, quick little exercise here. If I ask you not to think of elephants, don't think of elephants. Don't think of their big trunks. Don't think of them parading through the Serengeti, kicking up dust. It doesn't work, right? You think of elephants because they pop in your head. The brain doesn't process the don't. They don't process the negative when we ask people not to do something. But if you say, think very hard about tigers, I don't care if it's Tony the Tiger or Tiger Woods, your brain suddenly focuses on the tiger and the elephant disappears. So if we start positively messaging and saying, look at all the good stuff, there is no room for the don't. There's no room for the avoid. There's no room for the negative, because when you invite negativity in, the brain just leapfrogs right over the don't or the not or the thou shalt avoid, and it goes right to the thing. And that's what preoccupies our attention. So there's some very valid science behind why we should start moving this direction by saying guns are great. Guns are awesome. They help me reconnect with my spouse because neither one of us learned anything about it in school or in youth, but we were gun curious. And then we decided to go to the range, and now we have a better marriage because of it. We have a common interest. We stopped playing sports in our 20s or whatever, but now we can do this thing. And I think that's really important too, to know that it's not just some good idea, but there's neurological evidence behind it to say this works to help people redirect their focus and attention.
I know in training, I do my best to show all my students what I want them to do. And I try to stop myself from showing them any of the things that I don't want them to do. So
Right.
I know in teaching in general, that's definitely the way that I try to go, is like, okay, this is what I want. And since I've been in counseling, it is also one of the things I talk about when you're training your children is focus on the stuff that you want them to do, praise them for the stuff that they've done well, and do it often. Whereas we're tend to be wired to say, oh, you suck because you did this thing or that thing, or why can't you just do what I asked you to do? And the truth of the matter is, when we're talking to people who don't agree with us, we want to correct them versus saying, oh, wait a second. So what you're saying is you want to prevent violence, right? And this is my whole tactic when I'm talking to anti-gunners, when they say, well, all guns are bad. And I'm just like, well, okay. Do you care that people commit suicide? And just change the whole conversation. So it's called being manipulative, I've been told, but I like making sure people focus on what they're supposed to be doing. And the funny thing I've found in the past is that so many people who support the anti-gun agenda, at least here in Connecticut, when I talk to them, because I never wear gun clothes when I'm at the Capitol, is when I give them a little bit of information, they're usually very surprised. And the little bit of information never has anything to do with the Second Amendment, simply for the fact that I didn't know, or nor did I care about the Second Amendment. And I saw how much it shut people down when it says, my rights, my guns. But when you talk to them about the commonality of none of us want violence, nobody wants dead kids in schools. And, go back to what do we have in common? And then what is a better way for us to get there? And so
it's like they don't believe it. And I think the reason they don't believe it is because they've never heard it. We've just never been in that position to send that kind of messaging to say, we also don't like gun violence. It's like the disconnect is palpable. So when you present that, they're like, what do you mean? Guns are violent. They don't have to be. like you realize there's this like other whole area of interest that people use firearms for, right? It's not just like knocking over supermarkets. They're like, what? It does not compute. So there's an opportunity for education there. And the word manipulation is like it's got such a negative connotation, and it shouldn't. It's like consequence. Consequence is not negative. It's just a natural byproduct of a decision. You have consequences. Do your homework. Consequence is good grades. Don't do your homework. Consequence is bad grades. Manipulation. I manipulate the thermostat when I'm cold or when I'm hot. It's not a bad thing. I think culture's just twisted it that way. So now it's, we say, oh, you're manipulating people. Like, well, yeah, of course I am. I want you to see something different. Of course I'm going to use this technique. And then it kind of leaves them nowhere to go. It's like, well, that sounds good to me. I guess I manipulate too. Yeah, you do. We all do.
Well, we're also all salespeople. We're always selling something. So there is that part of it as well. But I definitely think that because I am newer to the gun community, and it took me a long time to understand the importance and the beauty of the Second Amendment, and I'm kind of one of these slow learner types. So the idea that a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. When I didn't have any context, I'm like, yeah, who cares? Now that I have context, it gives me goosebumps when I say that because I understand the importance of it. but it's certainly not where I started. And I know G-Webs, we talk about all the time, how do we reach people? And it's like, we have to reach them where they're at. And people who are anti-gun certainly don't give a darn about the Second Amendment, but they do care about saving children's lives, and they do care about preventing violence and making the world a safer place for all of us. And because some of us choose to go for guns for that sort of stuff, and some of us do not. And I say that because everyone's always assuming that I carry on a regular basis, and I do not. And but we have to take our passion for the Second Amendment and kind of put it in the background for the things that propel us forward to actually work and serve the Second Amendment. Because Rick Ector's thing this weekend, the ladies' free shoot event, is the perfect example of what can we do as a Second Amendment community to serve others. And we served over 400 women just at one of the ranges on Saturday, and over 300 women at that same range on Sunday. And I don't know what the numbers were from the other range that was running this at the same time. But it's just like,
I was thinking that you were saying that 300 on Sunday. What was the number on Saturday?
Like almost 500. It was like 494 or something.
Okay, he was shooting for 3,000, and you were at the smaller of the two ranges or the larger of the two ranges?
I was at the larger. I know, and he was only shooting for 2,000 because their best year was 2021 or 2020, where he did over 2,000. But I mean,
Okay.
but that's the whole point, is here we have all brand new people who never would have the ability to pay for range time, pay for training, pay for the gun, pay for the ammo. And he managed to take away all of those barriers. And I think this is one of the things we need to do, because I always wish that I could bring the powers that be to the gun range, especially to a competition where everyone is there for 3 to 5 days volunteering their time. Or an event like Rick Ector's, where everyone there is flying in from all over the country to volunteer their time. And I don't know of a more giving society than the Second Amendment crew, because the other part of it is we're black, white, Asian, straight, gay, everything that you can think of, plumbers, jet pilots, etc. And I mean, it's just the most amazing melting pot. And, you know, I wish more people got to experience all that.
So Rick's been doing that this was his 11th year. And one facet of this is, or one way to look at it, perspective of it is that, did you hear about it at all with all the expertly thumbnailed and, reactive stuff that happened in the last couple of days, last couple of weeks, last couple of months? Has there been much lead up to Rick's event, other than in a specific set of circles that don't unfortunately know how to market themselves, but at least out to the giant audience out there? So
he did get a lot of stuff though, like locally, and there were lots of
Rick does an awesome job. He's in his 11th year and he grows each year. I'm just saying, when I'm asking the audience that might be watching this online, though, compared to the media, the content that they absorbed for the last week or so, how often did Rick's event come up? Unless they're really paying attention to Second Amendment focused stuff, probably didn't even come up at all. So we have a bunch of potential there, but it's not like we have to start from scratch, I guess is what I was getting at, is that these things are established. Now we've got Toby in Massachusetts here. If he's probably driving or something right now, but we've got Tony Simon, who works with the Gun for Hire range in New Jersey. Then we know, I could probably go on listing ranges. So it's easy enough to take Rick's 11-year-long, like, proven concept and Tony Simon's diversity shoot, merge them together and just get 11 ranges to say, this will be my month, this will be my month. And now we've created an opportunity for that whatever to evolve, and for to happen regionally, and now for instructors to have 12 different targets to meet up at. And now we have a network of instructors potentially traveling to those events, putting it on their calendar, the instructors that have the ability to do so, or people, well, similar to what the Girl in a Gun is doing, except in a different way.
Yeah, to be fair, I went so that I could see how it was run, so that maybe I can bring something like this back to Connecticut.
Is there a range in Connecticut that you have in mind, or is that another challenge to find something?
Well, no, first I wanted to check out how it was, and basically the list is short, right? The simplicity of it is we need a range to shoot at, we need to find free ammo, free guns, and free instructors. The challenge to me is more a matter of finding good instructors and how do you figure that out? Because one of the things that was super important to Rick was that every lady that showed up that day had a positive experience. So the other thing about it that was cool was that Gun Owners of America was there, DC Project was there. There were others, and I can't even remember what they were, but like local, other 2A stuff. So there's lots of things that we can do, and it doesn't have to be 2,000 people. His event started with 40, and I've said this before, but my grandma was in Amway back in the 70s, and that whole idea of each one reach one. So it's like I could do a small ladies event here basically by myself for 4 to 8 women, or maybe 10 or 12. So it's like I don't have to make it big and huge. I can say, okay, I'm going to offer a free event, period, end of story. And it doesn't have to be big and huge. And we tend to get in our own ways trying to make things more difficult.
Well, Rick took 11 years to get to that size too. I'm sure his original thing was, let me start doing something. Well, you kind of described it already, but his original thing was, so he just happened to be the type of person to make it want to get big, but it doesn't have to be that recipe for everybody, right? Some people make cupcakes and some people make wedding cake.
Hey guys, we do this at Cape Gunworks now with, try to do it once a quarter or at least twice a year. And we partnered with NSSF because they have the First Shots program, and we just kind of make it a ladies only, or sometimes we'll do a First Shots open to everybody, but they'll actually send us ammo and targets for the event, sometimes eyes and ears. And it's been great. We've just dedicated a bunch of, instructors to it. And typically we've charged a fee, but I've always, and it's like $20. It's not like a lot, but even still, I love the idea of absorbing all the cost. And we've been brainstorming how we can do that. And one of the ways we've come up with that I think still needs a little bit more work is to come up with a charity. But, I've been warned by my accountant coming up with a charity is a daunting task, but some way that we can fundraise for it, because right now in this state, you can't do raffles or auctions or, like a raffle or whatever to raise money unless you're a charity, 501c3 or something like that. And so we've been trying to figure out how to be open a charitable arm of our business that we can then fundraise and do charity and GoFundMe or whatever, type of fundraisers, so that we can create this pool of money where we can help people who are, financially, who need the help to get training, ultimately range time, a membership, buy a gun, I don't care, holster, everything that goes along with it, because it could be upwards of $1,000 in this state if you get the license to carry, take the class. That alone is $225, and then the ammo and the first gun and the holster and the training and the time at the range and an instructor. So I'd love to be able to sponsor people and put them through and make it free. Basically, write an essay why it's important to you and you need help. And I'm not going to sit here and do like forensic audits on you. If you can't afford it, I'll take your word for it, and we can hook you up and set you up. But I love the idea of the simple beginnings and just doing it on a first shots basis type of thing. So I'm all ears. So it's a good idea.
Yeah, I actually forgot. I did just run my first shots from NSSF, and it was pretty awesome getting a box of ammo, eyes and ears, and literature, all for free. So that totally is something that I'm hoping to do every once a month. It's just months go by so fast, and here we are as August. So there is that. Jake, I got a question for you since I got you live here in person. Is one of the things I was trying to explain to the ladies and to the other instructors was the credits, the program that you offer to professionals. Would you mind sharing that again with me?
Yeah, so we have a continuing education series. There's parts 1 and 2 are available for free on the website. And if you're a practitioner of healthcare of any kind, we target mental health, obviously, but if you're a healthcare practitioner, primary care, dentistry, anybody who would be in contact with somebody who's, through the course of conversation expressing that they're maybe down and out, and the topic comes up of, are you suicidal? How would you do it? You gun owner? Yeah. We try to train people on gun culture so that the competence improves, in order that the professional or the clinician who's doing the contacting has a better understanding how not to be clunky and awkward with the discussion about responsible storage and safekeeping and so forth. And that's not necessarily with the individual, but those in the individual's home too. So, the angsty teenager or the neighbor's kids across the street or what have you. So we offer those for free. And we've gotten approval for continuing education credits for all 4 behavioral health boards in the state of Nevada, which includes marriage and family therapists, clinical professional counselors, social workers, psychologists, alcohol and drug counselors, but also medical professionals. So they're good for CMEs. And then we also got approval from the Post Academy, Peace Officer Standards and Training. So police officers who have to do their continuing education in mental health, suicide prevention, whatnot, they can learn as well. And it's a very, very challenging lift to get them approved by other boards in other states, because that's just a lot of paperwork and time we don't have and resources we don't possess until people start donating. So give your money to WTTA. But we would also like to produce a better quality video, something that's a little snazzier. It's not just a camera in front of me, Mike, and Rob talking about, culture in front of the camera. But the 2 are available for free. They're 3 hours a piece. And in most states, as my understanding is, you can either take the course, and as long as it's relevant to the profession, you can count it for continuing education toward your license renewal, or if it's approved by another state, which it was in our state, that also counts. I just chatted with a professional counselor in Ohio who was struggling, but then he found something in their laws that says as long as the program has been approved by another state board, it counts. So he was pretty stoked to find that, and he's going to use it as part of his continuing ed credit. But that's what we do. We're trying to train clinicians, practitioners to be more savvy as to the language to use and not be as uncomfortable and awkward as we typically are, so that we help people secure their firearms in a time of need. And then the flip side of that coin is something I'm developing. It's in my head, but I haven't put it on paper yet. Is I'm going to do a mental health component that demystifies what counseling is for firearms instructors, including range operators and retail shop owners and so forth, that they can take to their staffs or their participants in, say, a CCW course that says, here's what emotional functioning is. Here's how your brain ticks. Don't be afraid of this stuff. Just a quick 30-minute drop in that anybody can learn and teach in a brief slide deck that at least presents the opportunity, wets the whistle, breaks the ice to say there's more behind this than you realize. And you could also access some of my resources through Zephyr Wellness or our YouTube channel to learn more. And that way people aren't afraid to go get help when they need it. Because I think a lot of people out there who own guns, including the veterans and the first responders, the police officers, they think I've got some magical bat phone of the government that's, I'm just going to pick it up and tattle on them and take their property when they're struggling and they come in for counseling. And that's just not at all the case. I understand that in some states, especially New York with the SAFE Act, there are some zealous activist clinicians who will go out of their way to restrict rights. And those stories are awful. And some of them have been told to us through various means. But to that end, if WTTA can create a directory of practitioners across all 50 states, licensed professionals who are gun savvy, 2A friendly, then we can provide this directory that people can access and say, okay, I'm in Maryland and I know that this person is gun friendly. They're through the WTTA website. They've taken the cultural competence courses. They're not going to just shame me for participating in this activity that I have, which is gun ownership. And it breaks down communication, conversation, and potentially repels people from getting the help they need for themselves or their children. And then tragedy happens. That's what we don't want. And it is currently occurring at way too great of a volume. So to help us build that resource, we need people to recruit their friends and anybody they know who's in the clinical community. And again, that's all healthcare professionals. We'll welcome them in. It's just a brief, bio about who you are, what you do for a living, where they can reach you. And then we can improve access. That's one of the proactive things that we want to do to address some of this root cause stuff. So that's the nutshell version. You can check that out on the website.
You covered a bunch of stuff there. So it was nutshell, but I'm gonna give Brooke a chance to say whatever, because you asked the question, but there's a whole bunch of bullet points there that I'm gonna go back and hit.
All right. Well, I was just going to say that when you come out with that thing, sounds like something I need to have on Suicide Prevention Saturday to demystify the whole mental health thing. It doesn't have to be in my gun classes, but it sounds like it'll be a great augmentation to all of that. So thanks for all that work. Or the work that's in your head that's working on coming out, like the book that I have in my head that's been there for 3 years.
Yeah.
So
Eventually,
I'll try to pull it out of you from time to time. I'm like, so how's Antarctica?
So
And
just so
book.
that the jargon is clear, so because this is a key piece, and the person L3D is Luke, who is the person who hosted, the same way I'm hosting this room right now. That dude right there in 2013 hosted the first Every Second Matters. So he's asking continuing education credits. I don't know when he came in or if he got his answer or not, but I wanted to take a moment because, this is part of what we're trying to do here is expand the conversation past the bullet points and the confusion that is created by people not understanding the other side. So in an effort to create doors in the fence so that others can go through and experience the other side, Walk the Talk America is an organization. As we mentioned, Jake is a representative of it. Brooke was asking Jake about the credits, and Jake was answering the question. So one of the projects that, feel free to interrupt me if I'm saying this completely wrong, but from what I understand, one of the projects Walk the Talk America has undertaken is to let the health or the medical field understand the same way they would understand a veteran or a parent as a subset of our culture. They would be treated differently because of their circumstances. They've created 3 courses that the medical field can use to understand firearms owners as a subset of the population so that they can have a better communication and effective relationship with their patients, so that they can also have an accreditation so that patients can go, oh, this person is going to understand me more than someone who might, whatever they're thinking, right? So
that's exactly it.
The summary. But then Jake said, in addition, he's going to create a package that can be given to CCW instructors to reach across through the door another way and say, as you're instructing your brand new students to the either basic requirements for the state for CCW, or maybe the introductory level of what it's like to carry a gun around. So you're a kind of a new person to firearms. Guess what? If we went to a hunter safety course and they said, here's what hypothermia is, they're not going to give you what they taught me in EMT school, and they're not going to tell a doctor, but they're going to say, here's what hypothermia is. So Jake's going to prepare something that CCW instructors can say, your brain is a muscle, your brain is an organ, it can get hurt or broken, and here's some symptoms. Go ahead and then go on to the next topic. You're going to have to worry about your legal issues. You're going to have to worry about your financial issues. You're going to have to worry about a holster. So it's just one of the things to incorporate. So Jake and Brooke just brought up some awesome pieces that incorporate the evolution of the conversation about this, that doesn't rely on the confusion between subsets of our culture that don't appreciate. Some people think of guns as a cancer, as a vice, or as a horrible thing. And they see anybody that stands next to guns or even appreciates guns as appreciating cancer, vices, or horrible things.
That we love our guns more than our children.
Yes, they think all kinds of things. And that can be done the same way you might think somebody who is something is some way. So if you don't want to be thought of as some way, you have to walk across the fence and see it from their point of view. Once you understand what they're being misled about, you can come back to your side of the fence and educate, so that it's no longer a vector that they can use against us to manipulate people who don't communicate. We're trying to break down that effort of communication. So I just wanted to stop and say thank you both for having that conversation here, but just for the people watching to catch up to speed, hopefully that worked.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate
And
that.
I wanted to rip in here because, Jake, that's a genius move. I mean, that's a nice stroke there. And, to riff off of Brooke as well, she, the demystification thing, too often on this side, It's the demonization, the vilification. And we struggle against that, or at least I struggle against that mightily all the time. So having a resource like that, I think, is really key. Appreciate that and look forward to it.
Yeah, I got to jump off too, and I know Brooke does, but to answer would teachers be included in the clock hours? It's crazy timing on that because I'm doing another course on marijuana, cannabis, and society and how it affects youth, and I'm trying to get education credits for educators too, because the K-12 system absolutely desperately needs this information just as much as healthcare practitioners. So yes is the short answer. I've got to figure out how to do that. And then once we do, we absolutely will push forward. And hello to Tony Simon, who just jumped in.
Yeah, so like Jay said, I am leaving in like 4 minutes. But first, we need to have a moment of silence for Guns and Barbecue because his freezer died last night and he lost a whole bunch of meat. So hopefully the freezer guy got to your house today.
This is why we have generators.
Yes, yes. Well, no, it was only the freezer that died.
What?
So,
Oh, that
yes,
sucks. Ugh.
yes, it totally sucks. But so before I hop off Guns and Barbecue, I need to know: did the freezer guy get there to fix your freezer yet? Not that
Yeah, he got here, and it wasn't good news. Compressor stopped working for some reason. Like I told you earlier, it's 13 months old.
Part of the warranty, yes.
The extended warranty, but if they determined that it was caused by lightning strike, which could have caused a power surge, then it's not covered by the warranty. But then my homeowner's insurance would take over. So either way, it just stinks.
Yes, it does.
Literally.
Well, thanks everybody for showing up, and I'm going to cut it off at an hour here because there's another person who's starting a Every Second Matters chat. Every Second Matters is a project started in 2013 by a group of people to create awareness, and the idea is that there's nothing to join and no way to do it. There's no recipe other than to do something to share what our Second Amendment protects on the second day of the month. So in order to send people over to Ghost Tacticals Project, he's going to be doing a show here and starting in moments. Feel free to do that. I just wanted to take a second to say thanks again to Brooke from A Great Start Shooting School, from DC Project, and more. You can check out Brooke every Saturday on YouTube with the Suicide Prevention Saturday. Thanks to Jake for jumping in from Walk Talk America. Again, he's got a podcast out there that him and Mike do. Then they've got the internet or the Instagram. Then thanks to Toby, who jumped out to play hockey. He's runs great. He runs the Cape Gun Works in Massachusetts. Does a live radio show tomorrow. Check it out. He'll be live recording his radio show for an hour and then an extra hour of the podcast. He's very interactive with people watching live. Barbecue does a live show every Tuesday and Thursday, so he'll be live. Today's Tuesday, right? He'll be on live later on tonight. He also does a show midday Wednesdays. Check that out. He's got a book club, 2A book club. This month we're reading Shan Shan's book, the book by the lady who used to work for Monsanto, but then the 14th richest person on the planet hired her away from Monsanto to act like a grassroots organizer. We're reading the book that she wrote to flaunt how she did all that this month in the book club. DJ, the 2A roadie, thanks for jumping in. Smeggy, Snowman, thanks everybody for showing up. If you didn't get your questions answered out there, I encourage you to check out all the positive, encouraging, educational stuff that's out there about guns and the Second Amendment.